to the demise of our waterways, which where they fish from, and they contract diseases for all our wildlife. Well, I wonder what Mr. Pentel thinks about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm forgetting your name. What's your name again?
It's Eric Wiseman.
Oh, hi, Eric. Eric,
you?
I think your point is very well taken. I think the general trend towards concentration and factory farming and the factory approach to fish farming and so on has got to end. I think we're put in a position where we are, where we're in a position right now where we are concentrating so much in our food production that we're spawning these problems with viruses and so on, E. coli and things like that. So we're going to have to end this concentration. So Eric is absolutely right on with this discussion. We have got to think of things based on balance with the earth. And when you concentrate things, you create an imbalance.
And I think a lot of people actually aren't even aware of this issue. Because, again, this is an issue that you really don't see in the mainstream media. They're not talking about fish farms and the impact of fish farms upon our natural waterways.
Right, and we find out after the fact, and usually when big corporate commercial interests who want to turn the planet into a factory, basically, it's unacceptable, and we've got to fight this because there's too much at stake, and the public's got to gear up and get ready to learn about these things because our very natural resources are at risk. When this continues and there's no response, then we are in peril. And people who live near these factory farms, they deal with hydrogen sulfide clouds. They deal with the smell, the stench, the risks to their streams and rivers. And as Eric mentioned, in fish farms, they're dealing with the consequences of that as well. So people are aware of this. They just feel disempowered. Our government's not working for the commons. They're working for private interests right now. That's got to change, and that's why I want to be governor.
You know, and it's interesting that you talk about corporate welfare and private interests. And I was thinking the last time that I saw you actually was up at the state capitol because I just got done testifying with regard to my support for the eminent domain reform bill. And that I felt that we should not be having eminent domain for promotion of economic development. Because again, many times, again, that's a way of the government can promote corporate interests over what the people's interests were. And you were up at the Capitol lobbying on some totally different issue. And I just, you know, that's interesting that you should mention that because taking that another step further is that a lot of times people on the financial realm, they don't think of tax increment financing as corporate welfare, but in some ways, and in many ways, tax increment financing is a way of corporate welfare, that it's really sort of those larger corporations or those larger developers or entities that really are the ones who are given that opportunity at the expense of the smaller entrepreneur or the smaller business or the smaller developer who never are given an opportunity to participate in tax increment financing.
That's right.
And see, so there's this different levels of corporate welfare throughout many levels of the operations of our government.
That's right. And the thing is that it displaces resources that could be spent on a local level.
That's true.
So what ends up happening is that, like at the state capitol, we have major problems in the state pertaining, you know, and I don't want to dismiss one. One of the reasons I'm running, Diana, is because I love this state. I love the people of this state. So when I talk about how upset I am, it's only anger tied to real reasons, because our state is being abused. And that's why I get upset, because something beautiful, you don't want to see it be abused.
That's right.
You want to care for it. So when I see local communities getting gutted, or our policymakers' time at the Capitol is diverted from dealing with the need to decentralize our economics and restore local economies for things like stadiums for billionaires. You know, this angers me. When I see that the earth is being ignored, when in fact there's an emergency going on this planet right now. There's an emergency in the melting of the ice caps when we know we're heating the atmosphere. You know, there are emergency situations that are not being acknowledged, extinction rates and so on, and we're tied to that. Minnesotans are tied to those dramatic effects. We should not think we're separate. We're all interconnected. The environment, when people say all you care about is the environment, well, we are all the environment. We can't dislodge ourselves from it. So when a child ends up in an emergency room with acute asthma and they have no health care, we're all paying through that health care system.
That's right.
You know, we're all paying because a company rigged the deal through our government to poison our atmosphere. Instead of when we had laws in place like the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act, which is a beautiful piece of legislation that gets ignored, which says we should prevent and eliminate threats to the biological condition, and industry rigs it where they allow it to dump all over. That's not acceptable.
Right, because it does, all these things that you talk about do have an impact on our the cost of our health care.
That's right.
And health care services.
That's right.
And, you know, and that is one of the number one concerns that I know of a lot of people in Minnesota, if not nationwide, is the cost of health care.
Right.
So what are some of your ideas about how we can approach the health care issue here in Minnesota?
Well, as you've already probably picked up on, I look at things holistically. Everything's
That's
interconnected.
Right.
So when you can't dump poisons in the air and the water and expect our immune systems to be strong.
That's true.
Okay, so that's a starting point. The other thing is, obviously, what kind of food and how is our food prepared? What are we eating? Our diets, physical fitness. All of these things are tied into health care. So let's not exclude that.
And again, that's going back to that concept of what kind of preventative measures up front
Exactly.
can somebody take, and that there's probably a place to have incentives within the system so that people can take more advantage of preventative health care initiatives in their own lives.
That's right.
And while, you know, seems like money is what sort of runs the corporate world, I think that's, you know, obviously that's what runs some of the medical profession as well, or the healthcare profession,
That's
the
right.
insurance profession. And so it, like you say, it all's tied together.
Right. I mean, we could talk about healthcare tied to rewarding bicyclists.
That's right.
By creating incentives for businesses and government to make sure there's showers and lockers, and there's other economic incentives for people to do physical fitness as part of their transportation, walking and so on and so forth.
And at our Maplewood Community Center, we have actually such an incentive program tied into a number of different health insurance companies that if our members go to the community center at least 8 times a month, I believe it is, that they get a $20 deduction off their medical insurance.
There you go. These things can be buffed up, and we can make them better. The key thing on healthcare, though, is this. We're going to cover everybody in Minnesota.
That's right.
It's over. We're going to a single payer under my administration. What that means is we get rid of all the multi-payers, the health insurance, the insurance industry, the HMOs. We get rid of the advertising and the marketing. With all of that, which is now about 25 to 40% overhead, we bring the health care down to a single payer, 2% overhead. What we'll do is we will set fees. It's a 5-year phase-in program. So we set fees for drugs, hospital procedures, and doctors. We set up a hospital board. So we share needed like expertise in heart medicines around the state. We set up MRIs that are distributed fairly around the state. So it's not isolated to just the rich neighborhoods, but everybody is treated fairly in the state. And then what happens is you're born with a health card. You go into the doctor or the hospital for a procedure. You're done with the procedure. They swipe your card. The bill goes to the state. The state pays the doctor or the hospital. You never see paperwork. And everybody is covered from birth till death in Minnesota, period. That's it. It's done. We're not playing this game anymore of ruthlessness in the healthcare system. It's ugly, it's unacceptable, and I know Minnesota is better than that.
So how long would it take to put a program like that in place here in Minnesota?
Well, we've got the programs. I mean, people can look at models right now, the VA, Medicare, MinCare. So we've got the elements to do it. It would take us about 5 years to phase it in. So we do one piece each year and get the job done. It's been on the shelf for 60 years. Saskatchewan did this in 1960s. Businesses flocked to Saskatchewan. All other provinces took it on because they didn't want to lose business. In Minnesota, we take all the weight of healthcare off of school districts. All the city governments you work with, labor unions, small businesses, big business. No one deals with health care anymore. It's done. We end this pressure. We end this stress. It's got to end. I mean, everyone's paying for it right now, and it's crushing us.
That's right. And because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, is that how would this impact the small business owner?
Done. They don't deal with health care anymore. Everybody, their employee, you get a new job, you have health care. You move, you always have health care. Employers don't have to deal with it anymore. It's done.
So how is it paid for?
Paid for one thing we're doing is we're bringing the 25 to 40% overhead down to 2%. So we have huge savings right there. We'll help transition people who are in industries that are affected into new places, job placement programs and so on. Beyond that, what we'll do is we're also saving up front, because now that we can have preventative care up front in our system, we're saving ourselves down the road huge costs.
That's true.
And so that's big, because Minnesota, over 500,000 people do not have coverage, and a big percentage are under incredible stress making decisions between their rent and their hospital, their medical insurance and so on. So we're making people make terrible choices right now because of excess profits and greed in the system. So then what we'll do is we'll just, whatever we have above and beyond what we can afford right now, we then tax the richest income earners in the state. And that's it. And that's how we're better as a society as a whole. The richest people are better and the poorest people are better. We look at things holistically. As governor, that's the prism I work through. We are only as strong as the weakest among us. And we need to take those that have the most, we invest in those that hurt the most and need the most, and then the whole condition gets more into balance, there's less stress, and we all become stronger as a state. The richest become stronger, and the poorest become stronger. So this is about all of us. It's not just about those that get access to the system anymore. We're all included in a Pentel ProVenture administration. Now the people who believe in that have to line up their votes honestly and vote with their values on November 7th. That's a test of their character, because I'm ready to do the job.
Right, and that's why I wanted you to remind the viewers again when when the election
November
date is.
7th.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're gearing up for the last month and a half here on the campaign. People can go to the website, kenpentel.org.
And it's on the screen there, and I always remind my viewers that make sure you always have your pen and paper handy.
Right.
Because there's always stuff on this show that you're going to be busy wanting to write it down and not miss anything.
That's right, that's right. So we've got a beautiful opportunity here, Diana.
That's right.
I really believe in the ideals of democracy.
Yeah.
You know, I really believe in that, and I want to see it honest. Right now, we just don't have it honest, and I haven't even talked about instant runoff voting or proportional systems yet.
And kind of, talking about democracy, now there's going to be a debate that you weren't invited to. Well, maybe we should tell our viewers a little bit about that.
Right. We just found out that tomorrow on NPR, Minnesota Public Radio, public, remember the word public in there.
Right.
We're all paying to help keep this radio station going. They're excluding the Green Party candidate, myself, Ken Pentel, from a debate among the other three major parties. And I've been on NPR in the past, and I've been in debates with, we were in debates not based upon their criteria, which is 5%, or being a major party. The question is the public going to tolerate having voices excluded that can help us solve problems? Public radio in Wisconsin covers all candidates who get on the ballot. So NPR is,
That's right, and you would think that would be part of the open public discourse.
Right.
Is to say, well, let's get all the candidates who are running for governor up there so that they can all express what their opinions are, so that voters can be informed and have an idea about where each of these people stand on the issues.
Right.
And it is so interesting that, of course, yesterday was the primary.
Right.
And as I was leaving my precinct, some other guy was coming on in, and he wanted to sit and chat for a little bit, and he was saying how he was having difficulty finding out what everybody's viewpoint was that was on the ballot during the primary. And he had this little paper that he had all of his notes and everything, and he said, it is so difficult finding real information about how somebody really feels about something, because you can read a little blurb about it, but unless you actually have an opportunity to really hear them talk and express their viewpoints and their ideas, you don't really have a clue about who this person really is and what they really stand for.
Well, that's a good point. And the thing is tomorrow at 12:30, we want people to contact Minnesota Public Radio. Let them know they want to hear the Green Party candidate, Ken Pentel, on that debate. And the thing is that it's not just Minnesota Public Radio. This is about all the stations on the dial and on TV. Television and radio are the commons. They're the people's airwaves. We give out licenses, gratefully, to these companies. And they're supposed to be acting in the common good. What I've learned over the last 20-plus years of being in politics is that we're going to have to create free airtime for candidates because our airwaves are being abused. They're not including voices that deserve a hearing for the public to learn about what their positions are.
That's right.
And so the public airwaves should be used for the public good. They're not. And we're seeing this, obviously. NPR is the most egregious example tomorrow. But ongoing, if you look at all of the stations, CCO, KARE 11,
right.
Radio
and those
Dial.
are on the commercial channels.
Commercial stations.
Because, of course, on public access TV like this, everyone can get all the free airtime they want, but not all citizens turn on public access TV to see what we have to offer. And I think your idea that on the commercial channels, which, more likely have a greater viewership than public access TV, that if you do allow free airtime for all candidates to be able to get on, to be able to express themselves, to say what it is that they have in mind, then that levels the playing field between those candidates that have a lot of money behind them, because commercial airtime costs a lot of money.
That's right.
And those candidates who don't necessarily have a lot of money, they're at a great disadvantage when it comes to the commercial playing field.
Right. And the other thing is that what we're finding out in the commercial arena, and even as underwriters on public radio and television, is that when you pay for airtime, then it's reciprocal coverage. And so you get free media, because now you're paying, and now they want to keep you paying, so they'll give you some free media, and all these teasers are built in. But the point is that this is a situation where democracy is being infringed upon again. The public deserves the voices that are on the ballot. And I'm also talking about, I've talked about in the past, let's free up people's time to vote. Instead of making it a very narrow window on one day to vote, let's either make a day off for voting, a voter holiday, or let's do it let's start it on a Monday and finish it, start voting, let's say, on a Thursday and finish voting on a Saturday, so we could have 3 days of voting. I mean, let's give people the space to vote, and let's say they want the time to learn, they'll have some time in that day to spend seeking out what the candidates' positions are.
I have to share with you, a few weeks ago I had OBCM on here, who's running for U.S. Congress.
Okay.
And of course, he's not wasn't born in the United States, but he's a citizen, and very proud to be a citizen. And he said exactly the same thing you did. That, Election day should be a holiday. And, I thought that was a great idea then. I think it's a great idea now.
Yeah, exactly. Because we create too much stress for people. They work a full day, then they've got this little narrow, maybe hour and a half to find their polling place. May not have had time to learn about a candidate or candidates. And so they're stressing.
And let's celebrate the fact that we have the right to vote and the duty to vote.
That's right.
And give it that importance that it really should be given.
You're right, absolutely. And there's a couple other things I wanted to mention about democracy. One, a lot of people will hear, don't waste your vote. Don't be a spoiler. Those are oppressive words in a democracy. What we want people to do is celebrate their vote, vote how they feel. What we're proposing is instant runoff voting for cities. I worked on this at the legislature this last session and been working on it for 10 years.
Tell our viewers a little bit what that is.
Well, instant runoff voting, right now people hear those oppressive words, don't waste your vote, don't be a spoiler. That's got to end. And so what it is basically you don't have a primary for generally single-seat offices. This is what instant runoff. Mayor, governor, president. You don't have a primary, you go in the booth, all the candidates are listed, and you rank your favorites. You can start with one and end there. You can rank up to as many were on the ballot. And for somebody to win, they have to get 50+% of the vote. So a majority. So let's say they add up everybody's first choice, and nobody gets 50%. So they go to the candidate who got the least amount of first choices. Everybody who voted for that candidate number one, their first choice is taken off, and their second choice is applied. So you keep going until somebody gets 50%. And this allows people to go in the booth, vote exactly how they feel, and not worry about their vote being thrown away. It's a more honest way of voting. President of Ireland is elected this way. Parliamentarians in Australia are elected this way. We've got Burlington, Vermont just passing it, Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. And in Minneapolis this November, they'll have a chance to vote for instant runoff for their mayor. And single transferable vote for all councils.
I didn't realize that.
So that would make the biggest city in the Midwest a place where we now see a movement towards more multi-party democracy. The other piece of the puzzle is proportional systems. And this has to do with the fact that right now, what we have is you could get 49% of the vote for your party or candidate in a ward or district and end up with 0 representation. That's not democratic. That means 49% of the people are not, their values are not expressed in the system. In a proportional system, you'd have, let's say, a voting region of 10 members, hypothetically. It could be a variety of choices, but 10 members. If your party or candidate gets 10% of the vote, you win 1 seat, or 10% of the seats. 20% of the vote, 2 seats. So what this does is it decentralizes power, and people's values are reflected more accurately in the system. So if the Democratic Party were honest, it would probably be about 4 or 5 political parties. The Republican Party may be also maybe 4 or 5 political parties. Then we would have multi-party proportional system, which is a more honest reflection of the people in the system. And this is used by every other democracy in the world and every other emerging democracy. And in a proportional system, you generally get about 80 to 95% turnout, because people go, hey, I've got a chance to vote more honestly with my values and get a seat at the table.
That's right.
You know?
And I think, this is very consistent with what I hear a lot of people saying, is that they go, I'm kind of a Democrat, I'm kind of a Republican, I'm kind of a Green Party, I'm kind of a Libertarian. They're kind of a lot of different things, and they really feel that not one party actually fully speaks for them.
Right.
I come across so many people that feel that way. I kind of feel that way myself.
Right.
And I think if people are honest with themselves, more than likely that's the case. And yet there really seems to be a very, there's a push and a desire by the people in power to keep a very strict two-party system in place.
Exactly. And you have to recall, I don't know if we can all recall, but in the beginning of the 1800s, it was a flurry of third parties. Eventually, not today's Republican Party, but a different Republican Party, the third party that came through with Abraham Lincoln to end slavery. It was a flurry of third parties that eventually got women the right to vote, a flurry of third parties that eventually got labor rights in the early 1900s. So third parties have been essential precursors to liberation movements in this country. And that's what we're saying, is that let democracy move forward. Let's allow the evolution of democracy so young, sprouting parties have a chance to get a seat at the table to reflect the values of the culture at the time, instead of what we have now, which are these winner-take-all systems, which means that, for example, people get turned off. They say, well, in my district, my party only gets 40% of the vote and never wins the election, so I'm not going to go vote anymore. I don't care, because I never have a chance.
Right, because they feel disenfranchised by the whole system.
Right.
And I think that having this strict two-party system like this, it appears to me that it creates a chilling effect upon having more discussion about other creative options, that if it doesn't follow the party line, we'll forget it.
Right.
And, that is not very democratic.
Right. And I know many Republicans, and I know many Democrats. When I talk about single-payer health care, 80% of the public wants it when they're laid out the plans. When I talk about Heal the Earth, policies of energy efficiency, local sustainable organic farming, repairable goods over disposable goods, things like that, 80% of the public wants it. The public is not translating through its government.
That's true.
And there is a problem there. And that is one of the reasons we need a system that reflects the people, not central money, because it's central money that's cutting off the people. And if we don't get to that, everything we get are crumbs, and we're all basically theater players in a pre-staged event. It's unacceptable, and the public is going to have to build its resolve, because right now we are stealing from future generations. It is wrong. It is unethical. It is immoral. And unless we start getting leadership that acknowledges this honestly, we're going to continue on patterns that are, to me, just unacceptable. And the thing is it doesn't have to be about Ken Pentel. It doesn't have to be about the Green Party. But there is no other voices that are really clearly stating what we need to do. I mean, I have no problem with multi-parties. I want them. I'm promoting them. I'm asking where the Women's Party is. I'm asking where the Labor Party is. Where's the Farmer Party for small family farmers?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, where, I mean, obviously we got a Libertarian Party, we got a Socialist Party, but they're not emerging because the system locks them out.
Right. That's very true. And so I think, you know, that would be a breath of fresh air, is that if there was somebody who was in power who could say, okay, now we need to take initiatives to open this up.
That's right. And that's why 3 mandates I'm asking from the public. 3 mandates will be a statement from the public to our policymakers. 1, honest democracy. Get big money out, get lobby influence out. Let's go to instant runoff and proportional systems. That's the honest democracy package. 2, sustainable energy and food production locally. 3, single-payer universal health care. Those are the 3 things, democracy, energy, and health care, I'm asking from the public. Now it's up to the public. Now it's up to them. Are they going to continue to be fooled, deceived? Are they going to continue to cower and think that they're going to get a different result using the same system or voting the same way? They're not. And it doesn't mean there aren't good people in other parties. There are great people, inspirations to me. But it's not about the other people in other parties. It's about the ideals of democracy that we need to work towards. And that's what I'm asking people to do. And their vote counts. Their vote is leverage into the system. And so people should not feel like they can't make a difference. They can. When they're voting for a Green Party candidate, they're making a difference. When they're voting for a third-party candidate, they're making a difference. So do not, I hope people do not feel like their vote, they won't allow the oppression to continue anymore.
Right. And I think that is a very important thing for people to feel that their vote is not wasted, even though they probably have this feeling that maybe their candidate won't win. You still have to vote your conscience.
Right.
And if everybody went in there voting their conscience, actually the result could turn out differently than what everybody expected from the polls.
That's right. That's right. And the thing is that when you look at the Green Party's ideas starting out in the mid-'90s, in instant runoff voting, for example, it was a foreign language. Now it's had a ripple effect. Now it's mainstream. Now it's being adopted by many cities and the state level is starting to deal with it. When we talked about single payer, that was a foreign, for a lot of people even 10 years ago, it really wasn't on the mainstream. Now it's moving mainstream. But we have to maintain the third-party movement to keep those things moving forward. The most important thing is also to let people know that the Green Party has many candidates. I've got a running mate, Deneen Provencher, who's top-notch. She's out of Mound. She's ready to lead. She ran for city council in Mound, got 26% of the vote in a 3-way race in a Republican district. She spent $200.
Wow.
She's ready. People trust her. Yeah. She's a leader and ready to govern. I'm ready to govern. The other thing is we've got Dave Berger running for state auditor. A great candidate with the ecological audit. We've got Papa John Kolstad running for Attorney General. He's tough and ready to be Attorney General, and he's experienced, great organizer and activist for many years. And we've also got Mike Kavlin running as the peace candidate for U.S. Senate. Julie Risser running for State Senate 41 in Edina, strong candidate. Jesse Mortensen running for State House seat 64A in St. Paul. So people will have an option to vote green. Leroy Schaefer in St. Francis, in Anoka, running for City Council. Farheen Hakeem running for Hennepin County Board.
Oh, really?
Strong candidate and running against the tax that was imposed upon the people of Hennepin County, and against the and she wants the referendum. So
you know, and that's such a big issue.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't, well, I'm surprised that it hasn't become a bigger campaign issue.
I know. When I got to mention Jay Pond.
Oh, yeah.
Jay Pond running for Congressional 5. Great candidate, Jay Pond, ready to go. So we've got that. But the stadium issue. Why, you know, part of it is that we have a society who cares. But a lot of people are busy. Remember, we're working a lot of hours out of our life for wasteful planning. We're working a lot of hours just for waste in the system, okay? That's why I want to get efficient and so on. Go to durable goods. Durable goods saves us over 20 times more in taxes than disposable goods. So we save a lot in taxes there. That's where Republicans, you know, deceive us again. But the thing is that a lot of people are busy. They care about things, but they don't have time in their lives to spend being civically aware and active and mobilizing. We're also busy with a lot of toys now, things that keep us busy, technologies we never had 50 years ago. I remember 4 stations on TV, now 500 stations.
Right.
Now no computer, now millions of websites, cell phones, iPods. So we're very busy with technology.
Well, and then of course there's all these other recreational hobbies that take up resources, four-wheeling, and while it's fun to do all that and everything, again, that's something that wasn't done a number of years ago, and of course that...
Right, we're very busy.
Yes.
We've got a lot of things that keep us going, no doubt about it. But if we do not get focused, if we do not get focused on democracy and ecological restoration, we will use up our planet piece by piece.
That's right.
And that is our life system in this universe. We do not have another planet to go to. So we've got to get very focused and very clear, and we need to make sure the politics people are listening to and following and vote for is actually relevant.
That's right.
If it's continuing to divert us and tell us that things are not as stressed as they are, generally that's coming from the voices of those that are incubated. But the people who are listening know their economic stress. Many people know the ecological stress. I mean, we had the hottest 7 months in the history of the planet beginning of this year. Now, do we even, knowing this, does that mean we just keep doing it? I can't do this alone. I need help. If we're going to solve these problems, we've got to get together. Yeah, I can't solve all these problems alone. It's about us. It's a collective effort.
That's right.
That's what democracy is supposed to be, a collective effort towards collective courage to deal with common issues that we all care about and we can't do individually.
And I want to remind our viewers, of course, that the election is November 7th.
That's right.
So mark your calendar. It's a very important date, of course.
That's right.
And if you want to have more information about Ken Pentel and his viewpoints and whatever, of course, the web page is on the screen, so you can do a little more homework. And we have only about 30 seconds left. And with that, I want to thank you very much, Ken, for coming out here. And good luck in your bid for governor.
Thank you.
I think that if nothing else, people have got a better grip on what some of these real issues are, because I think a lot of the other governors, candidates for governor, aren't really covering these topics.
No, absolutely not. And Diana, I want to thank you for the service you offer, your willingness to maintain the health of cable access, and your service to the people of Maplewood. So it's so important.
Well, it was great having you on here.
Thank you very
much.
Got it. All right, take care.
Yeah. And for our viewers out there, stay tuned. We have coming up next Bob Zick with Inside Insight. And so don't touch that dial. Stay tuned. Good night.